Jung's warning cuts sharper than comfort because it leaves you no excuse. If the life you are living feels hollow, repetitive, or strangely foreign, is it fate, or is it your own shadow running the show from the depths you refuse to face? You have been told to chase light, to cultivate virtue, to appear whole. But what if the very light you worship is the reason you feel empty? What if the traits you hide, repress, and deny are the very ones that hold your life's purpose? How much longer will you polish the mask of goodness while your unlived self pounds on the door of your soul? Think of the anger you suppress, the desires you dismiss, the wounds you refuse to name. Do you imagine they vanish? Or do you suspect even now that they bleed into every choice you make, every relationship you enter, every dream you abandon? What if the weaknesses you are most ashamed of are not your downfall, but your compass? Jung insists the shadow is not your enemy, it is the key, and your refusal to face it is the real tragedy. So ask yourself, with the weight it deserves, what are you still running from? What unlived life waits in the dark? And how much longer will you let fear keep you from discovering the one thing you were born to become? At some point in your life, you begin to notice a pattern. The harder you try to be good, the emptier you feel inside. The more you chase the light, the more a shadow follows you. Stubborn, unyielding, refusing to be ignored. Jung called this the shadow, the hidden side of your personality that contains everything you deny, repress, or cannot admit about yourself. But here lies the paradox. The very parts you disown often hold the energy, creativity, and truth you have been seeking all along. Think about the times you tried to silence your anger, only to find it leaking out in subtle acts of bitterness. Think about the desires you buried, only to see them resurface in envy when others dared to live them. Think about the fears you refused to name, only to feel them mirrored back at you in every relationship. Do you see the pattern? The more you run from your shadow, the more it runs your life. So the question becomes, how much of your purpose has been trapped inside the very darkness you are so desperate to escape? Jung's psychology is not a call to indulge every impulse, nor is it permission to abandon morality. It is a call to honesty, to recognize that light and dark are not enemies, but partners. Your purpose is not born from the fragments you show the world. It is born from wholeness. And wholeness is only possible when you reclaim the parts of yourself you once banished. So where do you begin? You begin where it hurts. You begin with the qualities you most condemn in yourself. You begin with the recurring patterns of shame that haunt your nights and the projections you see in others that irritate you most. What if those very irritations are mirrors? What if what you despise outside you is simply what you refuse to acknowledge within? The tragedy is not that people never find their purpose. The tragedy is that they mistake denial for virtue. They think suppressing the shadow makes them stronger, when in reality it leaves them weaker, split, exhausted, fragmented. And how can a fragmented soul live a whole destiny? Your life's purpose is not a job title, not a social role, not even a dream you chase in the external world. It is the alignment of your entire being, light and dark, virtue and vice, strength and wound. Until you face the darkness, your purpose remains hidden. But once you do, what you thought was your greatest weakness may reveal itself as your deepest gift. So ask yourself, which parts of you are still locked in the dark? Which unlived dreams, suppressed desires, or disowned traits keep whispering at the edges of your life? And more importantly, how much longer will you keep pretending they don't exist when they may be the very fire that reveals why you were born? You already know what it feels like to wear a mask. You put it on every morning when you choose the parts of yourself that are safe enough to show and push down the parts that might provoke rejection. You tell yourself it is strength, maturity, or even virtue. You say, "I don't get angry," when the truth is you simmer with rage. You say, "I'm selfless," when secretly you feel suffocated by the weight of everyone else's needs. You say, "I'm over it," when inside you still ache with disappointment. But have you ever asked yourself, who are you really fooling? Jung warned that what you repress does not vanish, it gathers power in the unconscious. And when you wear the mask of virtue too long, it stops protecting you and starts choking you. Your life becomes a performance, and you forget who the actor is beneath the costume. How much of your goodness is real, and how much is fear of being seen in your wholeness? Consider this: is your politeness truly kindness, or is it avoidance of conflict? Is your humility truly modesty, or is it fear of owning your strength? Is your loyalty truly love, or is it terror of being left behind? How many of your so-called virtues are really shields, hiding wounds, hiding envy, hiding unlived desires? And isn't it true that behind each mask lies the raw material of your destiny, waiting to be transformed? The dark side is not just what you condemn, it is also what you disguise. Think of the times you boasted about self-control while quietly longing to break free. Think of the times you praised your patience when in reality you were too afraid to demand more. Think of the moments you paraded your forgiveness when bitterness was still rotting you inside. These are not signs of mastery, they are signs of fear dressed up as virtue. And here is the danger. When you cling to the mask, you never meet the one behind it. You live as a role, not a person. You live in fragments, not wholeness. You may convince others, but can you convince yourself? And how long can you go on living as a performance before the act collapses? Jung saw that the shadow is never destroyed. It waits. If you do not face it, it will show up anyway, in your projections, in your relationships, in your failures that repeat like clockwork. You call it bad luck when partners disappoint you, but isn't it closer to the truth that your disowned wounds are choosing for you? You call it stress when anger bursts out, but isn't it the rage you've denied finally demanding to be heard? You call it fate when your life feels empty, but isn't it your unlived potential haunting you? So the mask may look virtuous, but it is the very thing keeping you from your purpose. For your purpose does not lie in the self you perform. It lies in the self you hide. Imagine the energy you would reclaim if you no longer had to pretend. Imagine the clarity you would feel if you no longer had to repress what you already know is true. Isn't it possible that the very anger you suppress is the force that could drive your courage? Isn't it possible that the envy you deny is the compass pointing to your deepest calling? Isn't it possible that the fear you silence is the threshold to your transformation? The dark side you fear may not be your prison, it may be your teacher. But to learn, you must admit the truth. The mask is not virtue, it is avoidance. The dark side is not the end of you, it is the unlived beginning. So the choice presses in. Will you keep living safe, clean, polished, but hollow? Will you cling to the mask until it shatters under the weight of all you denied? Or will you strip it away yourself, trembling but free? Because one way or another, the shadow will not be ignored. It will either ruin you through repression or reveal you through integration. Which path will you choose? You say you want purpose. You say you long for truth. Then face the mask you wear and dare to see what lies beneath. For only then can the darkness stop being your enemy and become the very map to your destiny. Carl Jung gave language to what humanity has always felt but rarely admitted. The psyche is not only what you show, but what you hide. Your conscious self is the tip of the iceberg, but beneath the waterline lies the shadow, the sum of every impulse, desire, fear, and possibility you could not face. You think you are only what you control, but Jung warned that what you repress is what rules you. So the real question becomes, will you keep being ruled unconsciously, or will you bring the unconscious into the light and finally rule yourself? The shadow is not simply evil. That would be too easy. It is everything you disown, the envy you condemn, the rage you suppress, the sensuality you deny, but also the power you repress, the creativity you abandon, the leadership you fear to claim. In Jung's terms, the shadow holds both the destructive and the divine. What you reject is not erased, it waits, and the longer you avoid it, the stronger it grows. Can you see how much of your exhaustion is not from living, but from repressing? Individuation, Jung's central idea, is the process of becoming whole. And you cannot be whole by light alone. What you call virtue when you polish your mask is often just repression disguised as goodness. True strength, Jung said, comes when you integrate the shadow. That is when the unlived life within you stops sabotaging you and starts guiding you. Ask yourself, what do you most fear to admit about yourself? And what if that very fear is the doorway to the purpose you keep searching for? Think of how often you project your disowned parts onto others. You see arrogance in someone and feel disgust, but is it only arrogance? Or does it stir your own buried hunger for recognition? You see recklessness in another and judge them, but is it only recklessness? Or is it the freedom you have never allowed yourself to taste? Each irritation, each envy, each judgment is a mirror. And if you dare to look, you may find not just what you despise, but what you secretly long for. How much of your moral stance is truly morality, and how much is fear of your own potential? Jung knew the psyche has a ruthless intelligence. What you repress returns as symptom. The body aches. The mood collapses. The relationship repeats the same cycle. The dream whispers truths you are unwilling to face by day. Synchronicities appear, patterns that seem absurd until you realize they are messages from the unconscious demanding your attention. How many times has life repeated the same lesson for you, hoping you would notice? And how long will you go on blaming fate when the real author is your disowned self? There is a paradox here. The very thing you most fear in yourself, the anger, the ambition, the lust, the envy, may be the very thing you most need. When denied, they rot. When faced, they transform. Anger becomes courage. Ambition becomes purpose. Lust becomes intimacy. Envy becomes inspiration. But only if you stop pretending these forces don't exist. How many years have you lost trying to appear harmless, balanced, virtuous, when all along your purpose was waiting in the very fire you were taught to fear? This is why Jung insisted that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Enlightenment is not floating above your shadow, it is descending into it, claiming it, and allowing it to guide you into wholeness. You do not find your purpose by rejecting your flaws. You find it by following the energy hidden in them until they reveal the truth of what you were made for. Ask yourself, why does this specific weakness haunt me more than any other? Why does this desire refuse to die no matter how much I bury it? Why does this envy burn in me every time I see someone living what I refuse to claim? Could it be that these are not random torments, but road signs? Could it be that your shadow is not punishing you, but pointing you? Your darkness is not an accident. It is tailored to you. The unlived life it hides is the very life you were born to live. But you must be brave enough to face it. That is why Jung spoke of the shadow with reverence, not just fear. To meet it is to meet your destiny. To deny it is to betray yourself. So the theoretical foundation is clear. The shadow is not your ruin, it is your root. Projection is not coincidence, it is instruction. Repression is not strength, it is weakness. And individuation, the integration of shadow and self, is not optional if you want purpose. It is the only path. The mask may keep you safe for a while, but safety is not wholeness. Wholeness is born in the fire of facing what you least want to see. So ask again, what are you most afraid to admit? What trait in others makes your blood boil, and why? What hidden longing do you smother under the performance of virtue? And what if your purpose has been waiting all this time in the very place you swore you would never look? Because Jung's message cuts sharp. Your darkness is not here to destroy you. It is here to deliver you. The only question is whether you will dare to receive it. The shadow is not abstract. It is not some distant theory floating in books or in the minds of philosophers. It is lived every day, in the way you react, in the way you avoid, in the way you long. If you want to see the roots of how your dark side can reveal your life's purpose, you must look not out there, but in the ground beneath your own feet. For the shadow grows like roots hidden from sight, silent, but determining the entire shape of your life above the surface. Why do you keep circling back to the same relationships, the same arguments, the same disappointments? Why do your dreams in sleep or in waking imagination return again and again to the same symbols, the same places, the same emotions? Why does one particular weakness or hunger seem to follow you no matter how you try to bury it? Jung would answer, because your shadow is showing you the roots, and until you descend to them, you will keep living as if on repeat. The mechanism is simple but merciless. What you repress does not vanish, it sinks, and there it takes root. Those roots twist themselves through your choices, your moods, your failures, your obsessions. They shape the soil of your life. And until you face them, you are not living freely. You are living as a puppet of what you refuse to see. So ask yourself now, is the pattern you are repeating really random? Or is it the very map of your shadow calling you to face it? When you feel envy rise like poison, you think it is only about the other person. But what if envy is the root showing you where your purpose lies? You envy not what you despise, but what you secretly long to claim. Another's courage, another's art, another's freedom. And your shadow twists that longing into bitterness until you admit that it is your own unlived potential begging to be lived. How many years will you waste judging others for living what you have denied? When anger bursts out of you, you call it a flaw. You try to suppress it, apologize for it, clean up the damage. But what if anger is the root energy of your purpose? What if the rage you feel against injustice is not random emotion, but the raw fuel of the mission you are meant to carry in the world? Will you keep cutting it off at the surface, pretending to be calm while your soul burns within you? Or will you go down to the roots and claim that fire as your strength? When you are drawn again and again to someone you cannot have, you call it obsession. You fight it, deny it, hide it. But what if that longing is not really about them at all? What if they are the projection of your unlived self, the mask your soul wears to remind you of what you are missing within? How long will you keep chasing their body, their presence, their attention, when what you really want is the part of yourself you buried long ago? The mechanism is merciless because the psyche does not stop at your denial. It insists. What you will not face in consciousness will face you in life. The father who never claimed his creativity raises a child who burns with it. The woman who buries her ambition finds herself consumed with resentment at those who pursue theirs. The man who denies his tenderness grows bitter when tenderness is offered to him. Do you see the root? The shadow ensures that what is disowned still lives, and until you face it, it lives against you. Dreams, too, reveal the roots. You think they are nonsense, strange images of animals, houses, storms, strangers. But Jung knew every dream is a message from the roots. The dark figure chasing you may be the very strength you refuse to claim. The broken home may be the inner world you never repaired. The storm may be the rage you never allowed. Each dream is the shadow showing you in symbolic form the roots you refuse to look at in daylight. How long will you go on dismissing your dreams as nonsense when they are the map you most need? The root mechanism is not punishment, it is instruction. The shadow insists on integration because wholeness is your birthright. That is why the same patterns repeat until you listen. That is why you are drawn to what you most fear. That is why life feels like it conspires against you until you admit the truth. The enemy is not outside. It is the unlived self within. And the moment you face it, the enemy becomes ally. The curse becomes compass. The darkness becomes purpose. So ask yourself, where do you feel the most shame? Where do you feel the most fear? Where do you feel the most compulsion? These are not accidents, these are roots. And if you follow them, not to indulge them, but to understand them, they will lead you to the very core of who you are. Isn't it striking that the place you avoid most is the very place your destiny is hiding? Imagine for a moment that your shadow is not trying to ruin you, but to restore you. Imagine that the weakness you keep denying is actually the strength you were meant to develop. Imagine that the desire you feel ashamed of is the pointer to your deepest need. Imagine that the wound you carry is the soil in which your purpose can grow. If you lived that way, if you dared to see the roots, how different would your life look? The mechanism of the shadow is both brutal and merciful. Brutal because it will not let you escape. Merciful because it will always show you where to begin. Every envy, every anger, every obsession, every dream, every repeated mistake, these are roots. They are the hand of your unconscious pointing to the life you must live. And until you stop calling them accidents or weaknesses, you will never claim the gift they carry. So the question becomes urgent. Will you keep living on the surface, pruning branches that grow back again and again? Or will you descend to the roots, face what you fear, and discover that your darkness was never your downfall, but your doorway? Jung's wisdom is relentless. The roots of your shadow are the roots of your destiny. The only question left is whether you will have the courage to follow them. Because if you do, the life you are meant to live will not be something you invent. It will be something you uncover, something that has been waiting for you all along, buried deep in the dark until you were finally ready to dig. The digging is not poetic, it is practical. And if you want your dark side to reveal your life's purpose, you cannot leave it to vague intention or fleeting insight. Jung insisted on practice, deliberate, daily practice. Not to tame the shadow, but to integrate it. Not to erase it, but to make it conscious. Without practice, the shadow keeps ruling you. With practice, it becomes your servant, your teacher, your guide. The question is not whether your shadow exists. It does. The question is, will you let it run your life in secret, or will you take it by the hand and lead it into the light? There are 5 practices. They are not glamorous. They are not easy. But they are the work by which you begin to uncover your purpose, not as fantasy, but as destiny lived. Practice 1. Radical self-observation. Begin with honesty. Watch yourself like a scientist, but without judgment. What provokes you? What drains you? What obsessions keep circling back no matter how you try to bury them? Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" ask, "What is this showing me about what I have not faced?" Every irritation is data. Every jealousy is a mirror. Every compulsion is a clue. Do you dare to look? Do you dare to write it down, to track it, to treat your own life as the text your unconscious is writing? Until you observe, you will never see the pattern. And until you see the pattern, you will never know the roots. Practice 2. Shadow dialogue. Jung taught that what you do not make conscious will control you. One way to make it conscious is to give it voice. Write to your shadow. Speak to it as though it were a person living inside you, because in many ways it is. Ask, "What do you want from me? What are you protecting me from? What gift are you hiding?" Then answer, not as you, but as the shadow itself. Let it tell you its story. It will not flatter you. It will not lie. But if you listen, it may show you the very fire you have been too afraid to touch. Will you risk hearing what it has to say? Practice 3. Projection retrieval. Notice who you envy, who you hate, who you idealize, who you obsess over. Every strong reaction to another is a projection of your shadow. The courage you admire but claim not to have, the freedom you resent in others, the tenderness you dismiss as weakness, these are your disowned parts. Each person who provokes you is a mirror carrying a piece of your unlived life. Instead of blaming or worshiping them, ask, what part of myself am I seeing in them? What gift am I still refusing to carry? And most of all, will I keep handing my life away through projection, or will I claim it as my own? Practice 4. Dream work. The unconscious speaks in symbols, and dreams are its native tongue. Keep a journal. Record even the fragments. Do not dismiss them as nonsense. That shadowy figure chasing you may be the courage you've repressed. That storm may be your rage. That broken house may be your inner world waiting to be rebuilt. Ask yourself, what does this dream demand of me? What truth does it refuse to let me escape? Your purpose is stitched into your dreams, but only if you are willing to listen. How much longer will you ignore the nightly letters your soul sends you? Practice 5. Active creation. Purpose is not found in endless reflection. It is born in creation. The shadow's energy must be expressed consciously. If you repress anger, channel it into art, writing, movement, justice. If you bury tenderness, practice offering it in small, deliberate acts. If you hide ambition, create something bold, even if it terrifies you. The point is not to be perfect. The point is to take the raw, unrefined energy of your shadow and give it form in the world. Because until you do, your life's purpose remains theory. Once you do it, it becomes practice. These 5 practices are not optional. They are the work of individuation, the process Jung described as the soul's journey to wholeness. Without them, you keep circling in patterns you call bad luck or fate. With them, you begin to uncover the life that was always waiting in you. But ask yourself, will you actually do them? Or will you nod at their wisdom, file them away in memory, and return to the same distractions that have kept you fragmented? How much longer will you wait to meet yourself? How much longer will you let your shadow rule you in silence when it is offering you the very key to your destiny? These practices are not easy because they cost you the masks you have grown addicted to. They demand that you stop pretending humility when you are really afraid. They demand that you stop calling bitterness strength when it is only envy. They demand that you stop calling obsession love when it is only projection. Are you ready to lose the excuses that have kept you safe but small? Do not underestimate the cost. To practice is to suffer. You will see parts of yourself you swore you did not have. You will feel emotions you have spent decades avoiding. You will realize that the life you called yours was built in part on denial. But ask yourself, is that really worse than living half alive? Is that really worse than reaching the end of your days and realizing you never even began? Each practice is a shovel. Each day you use them, you dig. Some days the soil is hard, dry, resistant. Other days it crumbles easily, revealing treasures you thought lost. But if you keep digging, you will uncover what Jung promised, that the shadow is not your enemy, it is your root. And in those roots, tangled, hidden dark, lies the life you were born to live. So will you begin? Will you observe yourself without excuses? Will you listen to the shadow's voice instead of silencing it? Will you retrieve your projections, honor your dreams, and create from the very energy you once despised? Or will you let another year, another decade pass in silence while the roots keep waiting for you? Because the truth is, this, The shadow is patient. It will wait until the last breath, whispering, pressing, demanding to be known. But why wait until then? Why not begin now, while there is still time to live the purpose that has been hidden in you all along? The practices are simple, but they are not small. They are the work of a lifetime. And every day you pick up the shovel, you move one step closer to the truth that your dark side is not your curse, it is your map. And the more faithfully you follow it, the more clearly your destiny reveals itself. The question remains, will you dig, or will you leave your purpose buried until it is too late to live it? This is the threshold Jung places before you. The shadow does not ask for permission. It waits silently, shaping your choices, haunting your relationships, coloring your desires. But once you face it, once you practice it, it becomes more than an enemy. It becomes the hidden guide to your purpose. The very energy you feared is the energy that will free you. So why keep running? Why keep living as though half your soul does not exist? Ask yourself plainly, what would change if you stopped calling your darkness a curse and started treating it as a crown? What fire would you reclaim if you no longer buried it in shame? What relationships would transform if you stopped projecting and started owning your truth? And most of all, what life would you finally live if you dared to face the very parts of yourself you swore were unworthy? The cost of avoidance is clear. Endless repetition, hollow distractions, a life that feels lived by someone else. But the cost of courage is also clear. Discomfort, risk, the stripping away of masks. Which cost will you choose? Because you cannot avoid both. The invitation is now. Begin the practices. Watch yourself honestly. Listen to the shadow's voice. Claim your projections. Record your dreams. Create from the energy you once despised. Do it daily, not because it is easy, but because it is the only way to live a life that is truly yours. So, will you continue to survive half asleep, ruled by what you refuse to see? Or will you take Jung's challenge, step into the dark, and discover that your shadow has been carrying your purpose all along? The choice is in front of you. The shovel is in your hand. The roots are waiting. Will you dig?